The Wicked Prince, a Legend by Hans Christian Andersen. There was once a wicked, arrogant prince whose one thought was to conquer every country in the world and strike terror with his name. On he swept with fire and sword. His soldiers trampled down the corn in the fields. They set farmhouses on fire, so that the red flames licked the leaves from the trees and scorched the fruit as it hung from its charred, blackened branches. Many a poor mother hid with her naked nursling behind the smoking wall. And the soldiers searched for her, and if they found her with her baby, then their devilish game began. No evil spirits could have acted more shamefully. Yet the prince felt that all this was exactly as it should be. Every day his power increased. His name was dreaded by all, and fortune followed him in everything he did. From the captured cities he carried away gold and endless treasure. In his royal capital there were heaped up riches without parallel anywhere else in the world. And now he built magnificent palaces, churches and cloisters, and everyone who saw all this splendor used to say, "What a mighty prince!" None gave a thought to the misery he had brought to other countries. None heard the wailing and lamentation that rose up from the burnt-down cities. The prince looked at his gold, looked at his sumptuous buildings, and thought, as the rest did, "What a mighty prince! But I must have more, much more. No power must be named equal to mine, let alone greater." And he went to war with all his neighbours, and conquered them every one. He had the defeated kings chained with gold shackles to his chariot as he drove through the streets, and when he sat at table they had to lie at his feet and at the feet of his courtiers, and eat the scraps of bread that were thrown to them. The prince now had his statue set up in the public squares and in the royal palaces. He even wanted to stand it in churches before the holy altar. But the priest said, "Your Highness, you are great, but God is greater. We dare not do it." "All right," said the wicked prince, "then I'll conquer God as well." And in the pride and foolishness of his heart, he caused a fantastic ship to be built, in which he could sail through the air. It was as gaily coloured as a peacock's tail, and seemed to be studded with 1,000 eyes. But every eye was a gun barrel. The prince sat amidships. He had only to press a spring to fire 1,000 bullets, and there were the guns ready loaded again as before. Hundreds of lusty eagles were harnessed to the bows of the ship, and in this way he now flew up towards the sun. The earth lay far below. At first it looked, with its mountains and forests, merely like a ploughed-up field, where a green plot peeps out from the turf that has been rolled back. Next it resembled a plain ordnance map, and soon it was completely veiled in mist and clouds. Higher and higher up flew the eagles. Then God sent out a single one of his countless angels, and the wicked prince fired 1,000 bullets at him. But the bullets fell back like hail from the angel's shining wings. A drop of blood, only one, dripped down from the white feathers, and this drop fell on the ship where the prince was sitting. It burnt itself fast into the ship. It was as heavy as 1,000 hundredweight of lead, and sent the ship crashing headlong towards the earth. The powerful wings of the eagles were snapped in two. The wind whizzed about the prince's head, and the clouds all around, created no doubt from the cities he had burnt, massed themselves in threatening shapes like enormous crabs stretching their claws out after him, or like trembling boulders or fire-breathing dragons. Half dead he lay in the ship, which at last was left hanging among the stout branches of a wood. "I will get the better of God," cried the prince. "I've sworn to do it. My will shall prevail." And for 7 years he was building fantastic ships for sailing through the air. He had thunderbolts forged from the toughest steel, for he meant to blast a way into the fortress of heaven. From all his lands he collected huge armies. Ranged man to man, they covered a circuit of many miles. They went on board their fantastic ships, and just as the prince was approaching his, God sent out a swarm of gnats, a single little swarm of gnats that buzzed about the prince and stung his face and hands. In his fury he drew his sword, but the empty air was all he slashed. He couldn't get at the gnats. Then he ordered precious carpets to be brought. These were to be wrapped round him, so that no gnat could penetrate with its sting. And they did as he commanded. But a single gnat found its way into the innermost carpet, and it crept into the prince's ear and stung him there. It burnt like fire. The poison flew to his brain. He wrenched himself free, flung off the carpets, tore his clothes to pieces, and danced naked in front of his coarse, brutal soldiers, that now jeered at their mad prince, who was bent on storming the gates of heaven, and was mastered in a moment by one little gnat.